The moment Zahara decides she's done, she's standing in her own kitchen holding her boyfriend's phone. She didn't go looking for it. She picked it up to check the time because hers was charging in the other room. The screen lit up, and there it was, a group chat she'd never seen, with a name that stopped her cold. Zahara's bag. That's what they called it. Not a nickname for her, not slang for something else. A chat. 17 members, she'll count later, named after her money. Named after what she represented to every single person in Desmond's family before she ever walked through any of their doors. Zahara's bag. She's standing there when Desmond comes in from the living room, asking if she wants to order food. He sees her face before he sees the phone. And in the half second before he says anything, she watches him make a calculation. She'll remember that calculation for the rest of her life. The way his expression shifted. Not into guilt, not into shame, but into damage control. Into how much did she see? That's the moment. Not the texts that had been coming in for 4 weeks. Not Aunt Bev asking for light bill money on a Tuesday morning. Not his cousin Terrell calling her Z like they were friends when they'd met exactly once. Not any of it. The moment is the calculation. The half second where Desmond looked at her and thought about himself. But you need to understand how she got here. Because this didn't start with a group chat. It started with a dinner, a squeeze of the hand, and a single word that she trusted completely. Proud. Zahara is 34. She is a financial analyst at a firm she has worked at for 9 years. Started as a junior associate, built her way up with the kind of focus that doesn't leave much room for anything else. She makes good money, real money. The kind that took sacrifice and stretch assignments and years of being the only one in the room who looked like her, who also stayed past 7. She is not flashy with it. She drives a car that's 5 years old. She has the same apartment she moved into when she got her first real promotion. Nicer than what she needed then, not as nice as what she could afford now. She's just never seen the point of performing wealth. Money to Zahara is security. It's options. It's the thing that means no one can ever make her stay somewhere she doesn't want to be. That last part matters. Hold it. She meets Desmond at a friend's wedding. He's the kind of man who's easy to be around. Warm, funny, pays attention when you talk. He works in logistics, makes a solid living, isn't precious about it. Their first 6 months are easy in a way that surprises her. She's been in relationships that required a lot of maintenance. This one doesn't. When they start talking finances, the way couples eventually do, she's honest with him. She earns more than he does, significantly more. She tells him plainly because she's watched people dance around that particular truth, and she doesn't have the patience for it. Desmond says it doesn't bother him. He says he's proud of her. She believes him. Why wouldn't she? 4 months later, he asks her not to mention her salary at his family's Easter dinner. She agrees. She hadn't planned to. But on the drive home, she asks why. And he says his family can be funny about money, and he doesn't want it to be weird. She files that away. A small thing. A reasonable thing. Except 2 weeks after that dinner, something shifts. She can feel it without being able to name it. His mother calls him more. His cousin Terrell, who'd barely acknowledged her at the cookout, starts sending her friend requests on every platform simultaneously. Aunt Bev, who she has never met, follows her on Instagram and likes 3 years of photos in one sitting. She tells Desmond it feels strange. He laughs it off, says his family is just warming up to her, says they like her. She wants to believe that. She almost does. And then the texts start. She thought the texts were the problem. She's about to find out the texts were just the evidence. The first text comes on a Tuesday morning at 7:43. Zahara is already at her desk, first coffee going cold, when her phone lights up with a number she doesn't recognize. She almost ignores it. "Hey, this is Aunt Bev, Dez's auntie. He gave me your number. Sorry to reach out like this, but I'm in a tough spot with my light bill. Des said you'd be okay to help. It's $214. I can pay you back end of the month." She reads it twice, then a third time. $214 from a woman she has never met, whose name she has never heard, who was given her personal number, and told that Zahara would be okay to help. Like the transaction was already approved, like Zahara's only remaining role was to confirm it. She types back, "I think there may be a misunderstanding." She puts the phone face down and tries to return to work. She can't, because her mind is already moving backwards, already combing through the last few weeks looking for the things she must have missed, the conversation she half heard, the moment Desmond could have said her name in a room she wasn't in and framed it a certain way. She thinks about the Easter dinner, how she'd sat across from his mother Marlene and felt, for the first time, like she was being evaluated on different criteria than before. Marlene had asked about her job, not in the casual way people ask, but with a precision that felt almost like research. What firm? What division? How long? Zahara had answered openly because she had nothing to hide. She'd thought the interest was warmth. She'd wanted it to be warmth. She's starting to reconsider. By noon, a second text arrives. This one from Terrell. "Yo, Z, Des said you might be able to look out. I'm short on rent this month. Only need like $400. Des said you're good for it." Des said you're good for it. Not a question. Not an apology for asking. A statement. A pre-authorization. Like Desmond has already vouched for her generosity without consulting her generosity, and now Terrell is simply collecting what's been promised. She puts the phone in her desk drawer and closes it. She doesn't call Desmond. Not yet. She has learned, through years of being the kind of woman people underestimate, that the worst thing you can do when you're angry is move too fast. Anger makes you loud. Loud gets you dismissed. She wants to understand the full shape of this before she says a single word, so she waits. And while she waits, a third text comes in, then a fourth. By the end of the week, she has heard from 6 people she either barely knows or has never met. The amounts range from $180 to $1,200. The tone ranges from sheepish to completely matter-of-fact. One message, from a cousin named Daphne, doesn't even include an explanation, just a Cash App handle and a dollar amount. No context, no hello, just a handle and a number, like Zahara is a service, like she has office hours. She screenshots every message. She saves every number. She doesn't tell Desmond because she's watching something now, and she doesn't want to disturb it until she can see the whole thing clearly. That Friday, they have dinner at his mother Marlene's house. Zahara sits at that table and watches. She watches how Desmond moves through the room, easy, relaxed, laughing loud. She watches how his family looks at her. It's subtle. It is very subtle, but it's there. A particular kind of attentiveness. The way you look at something you're waiting on. Marlene refills her glass twice without being asked. An aunt she hasn't met before squeezes her shoulder and says she's heard so much about her. Terrell, who texted her 4 days ago asking for $400, gives her a hug at the door like they're old friends. Not one of them mentions the texts. On the drive home, Desmond holds her hand over the center console and says his family loves her. He says he knew they would. He says she fits. Zahara looks out the passenger window and says nothing, because she's thinking about the word fit, about what it means when someone says you fit into a space, about whether they mean you belong there or whether they mean the space was designed for exactly what you carry. If you've ever been in a room and felt like people were being kind to your circumstances instead of to you, you already know what Zahara is feeling right now. And if this is your first time here, stay close, because Fur by Firelight is exactly the place to slow it all the way down. She doesn't confront him that night. She's not ready. But she does one thing before she falls asleep. She opens her phone. She counts the messages again. 6 requests, 6 different people, all within the same 7-day window. That is not a coincidence. That is a rollout. Zahara gives it one more week before she says anything. She needs that week. Not because she's afraid of the conversation, she's not, but because she has spent her entire adult life making sure that when she speaks, she has already accounted for every exit, every counter, every way someone can reframe what happened and make her the problem. She's been the problem before. She knows what it costs. She's not paying that again. So she watches, she documents. And on a Wednesday night, when Desmond is relaxed and fed and settled on the couch, she sits across from him and she asks very calmly whether he told his family how much she makes. He doesn't say no. He doesn't say no. What he says is, "I may have mentioned that you do well." He says it the way people say things they know are wrong, but have already decided to defend. Measured, prepackaged, like he rehearsed the landing even if he didn't rehearse the admission. Zahara tells him about the texts, all 6 of them. She reads a few out loud. Aunt Bev's light bill, Terrell's rent, Daphne's Cash App handle with no explanation attached. She watches his face as she reads. He has a good face for this. Concerned, a little uncomfortable, performing the appropriate amount of surprise. He says he had no idea they would reach out like that. He says he's going to say something to them. He says he's sorry. She lets him finish. Then she asks him one question. She asks him why, after she specifically, clearly asked him not to share her finances with his family, he did it anyway. And this is where Desmond makes his first real mistake. Because instead of answering the question, he reframes it. He says she's being a little sensitive. He says his family isn't like that. They're just going through a hard time right now. He says he was proud of her and he wanted them to know the kind of woman he was with. He says it like pride is a justification, like being proud of someone gives you the right to monetize them. She hears every word. She files every word. She doesn't push it further that night. She says, okay. She says she understands. She watches him relax back into the couch, relieved, and she thinks about the word sensitive and what it's designed to do inside an argument. How it turns the person with the legitimate concern into the person with the emotional problem. How it moves the conversation off the facts and onto her feelings, where he has more control. She has been called sensitive before. It never ends where people think it does. The following week, the texts don't stop. They slow down. Desmond must have said something, but they don't stop. A different cousin this time. Then his younger brother Malik, who she actually likes, who she thought liked her back, asking if she could look out with a car payment just this once. Just this once. They always say just this once. She helps Malik. She doesn't know why exactly. Maybe because she does actually like him. Maybe because she wants to see what happens. Maybe because some part of her is still hoping there's a version of this that isn't what it looks like. She sends the money and watches to see if Desmond knows about it before she tells him. He mentions it at dinner 2 days later, casually, like information that passed through him on the way somewhere else. Oh, Malik said thank you, by the way. She didn't tell Desmond she helped Malik. She sits very still with that for a moment. The chain of it. Malik texts her. She sends the money. Malik reports back to Desmond. Desmond relays the thank you like a manager CC'd on an email. There is an infrastructure here, a system of communication she was never invited into, but has apparently been a subject of for longer than she knows. This is when she starts to understand that the group chat she found wasn't where the conversation started. It was just where they kept the notes. Tell me something. If the person who was supposed to have your back was quietly building a system around you, how long do you think it would take you to see it? Drop your answer below. Because what Zahara figures out next is going to change everything you thought you understood about how this started. She goes back through 4 months of her own memory, and she starts placing things differently. The Easter dinner, the warmth she mistook for acceptance, the way Desmond asked her not to mention her salary, not to protect her, she realizes now, to protect the reveal, to make sure the information landed on his terms, in his timing, framed the way he needed it framed. He didn't share her salary because he was proud of her. He shared it because he needed them to know what was available. Zahara makes a decision on a Sunday morning in November. She is sitting at her kitchen table with her laptop open and a cup of tea she hasn't touched, and she is looking at 4 months of bank transfers. Not large amounts individually. That's the thing about this kind of drain. It's designed to stay beneath the threshold of alarm. $40 here, $120 there, the $214 to Aunt Bev, the car payment for Malik, a grocery run for Desmond's mother that she offered because she was standing right there and it felt rude not to, 2 tanks of gas, a birthday dinner she hosted that somehow grew from 6 people to 14, and she absorbed the difference without saying a word. Total, across 4 months, $3,480. She didn't plan to add it up. She almost didn't want to know. But she's a financial analyst. Numbers are what she does when something doesn't feel right. And sitting there, looking at that figure, not because she can't afford it, but because of what it represents, something inside her goes very quiet. $3,480, extracted, incrementally, from a woman who was told her partner was proud of her, who sat at a dinner table and mistook strategy for warmth, who helped a man's younger brother with a car payment and found out 2 days later that the transaction had already been reported back up the chain. She closes the laptop, she gets dressed, and she calls her best friend Nadia and asks if she can come over. Nadia has known Zahara for 11 years. She has seen her in every version: the grinding early years, the promotions, the relationship before Desmond that ended badly, the slow, careful way Zahara rebuilt her trust in people after that. Nadia does not panic easily. But when Zahara sits down on her couch and lays it out, all of it, from the Easter dinner to the group chat name to the tally on the laptop, Nadia goes very still. She says, "Zahara, that's not a family that likes you. That's a family that identified you." And Zahara exhales for what feels like the first time in months, because that's the word, identified. Not welcomed, not warmed to, identified. The way you identify a resource. The way you locate something useful and begin, quietly, to build your access to it before the person it belongs to understands what's being built. Nadia asks her what she wants to do. Zahara says she doesn't know yet. She says she keeps trying to find the version of this where Desmond is innocent, where he was just careless, just thoughtless, just proud in the wrong direction, where the group chat named after her money was someone else's idea and he didn't know, or he knew and he felt bad about it, or there's a context she's missing that makes it make sense. She's been trying to find that version for 4 months. She can't find it. Because every time she gets close to giving him the benefit of the doubt, she runs into the pause. the half-second calculation when he saw her holding his phone. That pause doesn't belong to a man who stumbled into something. That pause belongs to a man who knew exactly what she'd found. She confronts him that evening, not with tears, not with accusations she can't support. She sits him down and she walks him through it the same way she'd present findings at work. Clear, sequential, documented. The texts, the amounts, the timeline, the group chat, the fact that Malik's thank you reached him before Zahara mentioned it. She puts her phone on the table with the screenshots facing up. She asks him to explain. Desmond is quiet for a long time, and in that quiet, Zahara watches something shift in him, not toward honesty, but toward a new strategy. She can see him calculating again, measuring what she knows against what he can still salvage. He's not asking himself how to be truthful. He's asking himself how much truth he has to give. What he says is, "I was trying to help my family." He says it like that's the whole story, like good intentions are a structural defense, like helping his family and deceiving her aren't two things that can be true at the same time. She asks him what the group chat is. He says it's nothing. He says his cousins are just being funny. He says she's taking it too seriously. Zahara's bag, 17 members, 4 months of requests, $3,480. Nothing. She looks at him for a long moment. Then she picks her phone up off the table. She doesn't say anything else that night. She doesn't need to, because she's already made the decision. She made it on Sunday morning at that kitchen table. She just needed to sit across from him one more time to make sure she wasn't wrong about who she was looking at. She wasn't wrong. What she does next? Desmond will not see it coming. And neither, honestly, will his family. Zahara doesn't end it that night. She ends it strategically. She is a financial analyst. She thinks in quarters. She thinks in outcomes. And the outcome she is working toward right now is not just the end of this relationship. It is the end of this relationship in a way that leaves her with nothing unresolved. No loose ends. No way for Desmond to rewrite what happened once she's gone. No version of events where she was the difficult one, the sensitive one, the woman who couldn't appreciate a man who was just trying to take care of his family. She has one more thing she needs to know before she walks out. She needs to know when it started. The answer comes from a place she didn't expect. Desmond's younger brother, Malik, the one she actually liked, the one whose car payment she covered, sends her a message on a Friday afternoon. It isn't a request this time. It says, "I feel bad about some stuff. Can we talk?" She calls him back in under a minute. Malik is 26. He's younger than the rest of them by enough years that he sat slightly outside the circle when the original conversation happened. He didn't know she didn't know. He assumed, because of the way it was presented to him, that Zahara was a willing participant, that this was a family support system she and Desmond had discussed and agreed to, that the group chat was something she was aware of, maybe even proud of, a couple building something, opening up resources, choosing to show up for people. That's how Desmond framed it, not as something extracted, as something offered. Malik tells her the chat started 6 weeks before Aunt Bev sent that first text. Desmond created it after the Easter dinner. He told his family that Zahara was generous, that she believed in taking care of people, that she'd said she wanted to be that kind of partner. He told them she just needed to be approached the right way. He told them not to go through him, to contact her directly, to keep it warm, to keep it casual. He coached them. He sat his family down, or pulled them into a chat, and he coached them on how to approach his girlfriend for money in a way she wouldn't refuse. Zahara is very still on the phone while Malik talks. She is doing the thing she does, staying inside the information, not running from it, letting it land in full before she decides what it means. What it means is this: the man she trusted with the most private number in her life, what she earns, what she built, what it cost her, used it as a pitch deck. He didn't share it because he was proud. He shared it because it was useful. And then he built an operation around it and told everyone she was on board. She thanks Malik. She tells him she knows it wasn't easy to call her. She means it. She hangs up and she sits for a long time in the quiet. She thinks about the dinner where Marlene refilled her glass twice, the aunt who squeezed her shoulder, Terrell's hug at the door. All that sudden warmth that arrived at exactly the same moment her salary did. She'd wanted it so much. She'd been with Desmond for 2 years, and she'd wanted his family to love her. And when it finally felt like they did, she'd just taken it in without questioning what had changed. Nothing had changed about her. The only new variable was the number. That's the part that stays with her the longest. Not that they wanted her money. People need things. Families go through hard times. She grew up watching people she loved struggle, and she has never been someone who holds her resources close when someone genuinely needs help. If Desmond had come to her honestly, said his family was in a difficult stretch, asked if she'd be open to helping where she could, she would have had that conversation. She might have said yes. But he didn't ask. He decided for her. He packaged her generosity without her consent and distributed it to 17 people, and then sat across from her at dinner, holding her hand and saying she fit. She fit exactly the shape of what he needed. That night, she does something she's never done in a relationship before. She writes it all down. Not in a journal, in a document. She writes down the timeline, the amounts, what Malik told her, the screenshots she already has, the date the chat was created versus the date Aunt Bev first texted. She writes it clearly, the way she'd write a report at work.
Because she wants a record. Because she has learned in the last 4 months that when you're dealing with someone who is very good at reframing, the truth needs to be somewhere it can't be touched. She saves the document. She sends it to her own email. And then she calls Desmond and asks him to come over. He says sure, sounds good. Should he bring food? He has no idea what's waiting for him on the other side of that door. Desmond arrives at her apartment at 7:15 with a bag of takeout and absolutely no idea what is about to happen. Zahara lets him in. She doesn't take the food. She sits down at the kitchen table, the same table where she added up the numbers on a Sunday morning, and she tells him to sit down too. She opens her laptop. She turns it toward him. She walks him through every line, the timeline, the amounts, the date the chat was created, Malik's call, the coaching, and she uses that word, coaching, and watches his face when she does. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. The document does the work. 4 months of her own life, organized into columns, quiet and devastating on a screen. Desmond tries 3 different versions of a response. The first is confusion. He says some of this isn't accurate. She points to the screenshots. The confusion evaporates. The second is justification. He says his family is struggling and she has so much, and he didn't think she'd miss it, and he was going to tell her eventually. She lets him finish. Then she points to the column marked coaching and reads Malik's account back to him, word for word. The justification evaporates. The third is the one she knew was coming.
the version she has been waiting for since the Easter dinner. He says she's being cold. He says he thought she was the kind of woman who showed up for people. He says he thought she understood what family meant. He says it soft and a little wounded, like if he can make her feel guilty fast enough, the document will stop existing. She closes the laptop. She looks at him for a long moment, and she says, "I am the kind of woman who shows up for people. That's exactly why you built a system, to extract it from me, instead of asking." She tells him to take his food and go. He goes. It doesn't end cleanly. It never does. There are texts afterward, from him, saying she's overreacting, saying they can talk about it. From Aunt Bev, of all people, saying she heard what happened, and she hopes Zahara knows it wasn't personal. From Terrell, nothing. From Marlene, a very formal message about how she always thought Zahara was a lovely girl, and she hopes there's no hard feelings. No hard feelings. Zahara reads all of them once. She doesn't respond to any of them. She puts her phone down, and she goes back to her life. The life she built before Desmond, the one that was always hers, the one that turned out to be the only thing certain people ever saw when they looked at her. She does one more thing 3 weeks later. She adjusts her privacy settings on every platform. She changes the number she'd had since her 20s. She is not hiding. She is just returning, deliberately, to a smaller and more chosen circle. The kind where people know her name before they know her salary. The kind where warmth doesn't arrive on a schedule, timed to information. She thinks about Malik sometimes, how he didn't have to call her, how he did anyway. She thinks about what it takes to do that, to step outside the circle you were raised in and tell the truth to someone it might help. She doesn't stay angry at him. She decides, quietly, that he already cost himself something for making that call, and she's not going to add to it. That feels like the right thing. She trusts that feeling. Here is what I want you to hold on to when you leave this story. Zahara didn't miss signs. She trusted someone who gave her real reasons to trust him, right up until the moment he didn't deserve it anymore. That's not naivety. That's how this works. The people who do this are not careless or obvious. They are precise. They know exactly when to be warm and when to pull back. They know how to make you feel chosen without ever fully choosing you. The tell is never in the big moment. The tell is in the pause, the half-second calculation. The way someone's face moves when they're deciding how much truth costs them right now. If something in this story lived in you, if you recognized the warmth that arrived with information, the gratitude that felt like it was addressed to your circumstances instead of to you, I want you to trust that recognition. You are not too much. They were just not enough. Stay for the next one, because the story coming up next is about a woman who spent 3 years believing her best friend's husband was the problem, right up until she found out her best friend was the one who sent him to her. Around here, we don't just survive it, we understand it, and then we let it go. The firelight is always on. I'll see you next time.